The reason why we keep growing is because we want to keep making bigger impact. We want to be able to help more patients. There's kind of this resurgence of enough is enough. We don't want someone telling us how to take care of our patients. We want to be able to do what's best for them, not what's just best for the bottom line for the corporation. We being practice owners, we're creating the culture in the workplace. So if we don't like it, it's our own fault.
This is Optometrists Building Empires, and I'm your host, Ankit Patel. Each week, we'll explore the journey of practice ownership and leadership in optometry. Join us for insights and strategies from the top minds in our field. This show is sponsored by My Business Care Team. My Business Care Team helps your office increase revenues, reduce costs, and reduce staffing headaches. Let's build your empire together. Today's guest is someone who I'm excited to sit down with. He traveled to Haiti on humanitarian mission trips, providing vision screenings and care to over 1,700 patients in need. He took ownership of an established practice in 2018, carrying forward a legacy of personalized, compassionate eye care in his community. Outside of his work, he coaches kids sports teams and stays rooted in the community he serves. He's owner and OD at EyeDocs Family Eye Care, which is 2 locations in the Dayton, Ohio area. Please welcome Dr. Kyle Maxam. Kyle, welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this conversation. And so what was the most important thing that helped you grow your empire?
Yeah, I'd say that the most important thing for me would have been just kind of surrounding myself around mentors or just good people that I felt like could kind of help me grow and get to kind of that next phase of the practice. I come from a kind of sports background. I played college soccer, and a big thing for me was always looking to coaches, valuing their input to kind of help grow and develop and kind of get to that next phase. And even from the time we started off in practice, looking for the next location or where we were going to begin practicing, it was important that finding that mentorship program. So when we were first looking, I went to school out in St. Louis, University of Missouri, St. Louis, and me and my wife, we set up 3 different interviews with different practices, kind of varying from small practice, single doctor, single location to multi-location. And the big thing that differentiated the 3 different visits for us was finding one that the doctor was really looking to help coach and kind of teach background on the practice. So even though some practices were a little further along in the process and had very impressive metrics, for us, it was really about finding somebody who was looking to kind of pass on that information. The doctor, he was 2 years from retirement, and he was looking to kind of not just pass on the practice and just retire, but also wanted to kind of help us get our feet under us and show us the ropes so that we could be successful in our next phase.
Nice. And so that's a really interesting model. So you said, so if I heard correctly, you were looking at 3 different practices to buy. You went with the one where the doctor was willing to stay on board and coach you. How much of a difference do you think that made?
Yeah, it was huge. So that kind of came up as we were first meeting with him. It wasn't going to be just I come and work for him for 2 years. That was kind of our set time frame. So we knew going in that we were planning on taking over the practice eventually. But we built in a week a day or half day a week that we could actually meet with him and start from the very basics of reading the P&L, how do we do payroll. We were still paper records at that point. He was running all of his own payroll by hand, doing all his tax reporting. So it was kind of a systematic learning each and every step of running the practice. So we were very intentional about that from the beginning. And then we kind of moved on to framework management and running the team and all those aspects that you don't hit on in school.
No, it is a lot, I imagine. So as you were growing, as you were learning, what did you run into that you didn't expect?
It was a really slow, gradual process. He started off, I was only in the practice 2 days a week. I was working outside the practice at a commercial location. And then he kind of slowly, gradually stepped out of the practice where by the end of that 2 years when I took over, patients didn't even notice anything had changed because he went from less and less time. But during that time, there was a lot of ideas that I thought of it would be great if we did this in the practice, or obviously bringing to paper charts to EHR and changing some things in the billing. The hardest part was me wanting to do all these new things in the practice and then also bringing the team along with me. There's a big difference between, I think, leading a team as well as there is kind of dragging the team along with you. So that was kind of the learning curve for me initially, was kind of how to put that into practice, how to bring the team along with me and get them engaged, get them bought into where we were wanting to go with the practice, not just pulling them along.
And so tell me a little bit about some things that, you tried something that didn't go well that you thought would work well. Maybe some good advice that you got that was like, it wasn't quite right for me.
Yeah, and when I took over the practice, so it was in 2018. I had had a lot of coaching up till that point. In that first year, trying to bring EHR in, we were seeing a lot of exponential growth during that time. It's been growing a lot, but when you're starting at the size that we were, where really it probably only it entailed 4 days a week full time for a doctor, to going to being an associate pretty soon. There's a lot of changes that were kind of new to me, that were beyond what I was ready for at that time. So that's when you kind of get this isolated feeling of trying to figure out all the problems on your own. And that's when we actually kind of went for more coaching. We reached out to Aquos Alliance, or with Tim Merrigan. And for us, that was a huge step for me, because I was able to kind of bring up a lot of the HR, a lot of the leadership issues I was running into. Of I know this is good for the practice. I know this will be good for the patients. How do I help get the team bought in? And there were some things that we run into where I was always very specific about, or very intentional about, the culture that I wanted to build in the practice. I was very in tune with the practice owner before me, and we had a very similar philosophy, and wanting to continue where be a good steward of what he had built here. So he kind of helped guide me through that, sometimes making tough decisions as far as the personnel goes. And there were times where I wanted to make changes, but I didn't, because things were going well in the practice, and because not wanting to rock the boat. But it kind of gave me that confidence of, this is going to be a good change for the practice. As we were growing and expanding, needing to add new staff members, it kind of instilled that confidence in me that we have the margin in the numbers, that this is still going to be a good move for us. And as well as you're trying to be intentional about how we wanted to run the practice. I've got 4 kids now, but we had my son was actually born within a couple of weeks of me graduating optometry school. And so that was always important to me, is, I wanted to be at the family dinners. I wanted to be coaching their practices. And, with that's tough with the crazy hours that you might work as a solo practitioner, and all the business side of things, trying to take care of that. So, they kind of helped me get intentional about the kind of practice that I'm wanting to build. And that kind of led to me very early on, probably before normally we'd be ready to bring on an associate, bringing on a doctor. So that way we could kind of give me time to work on the practice, work on outside of just seeing patients, and still kind of have that work-life balance that we were shooting for.
So let's talk about that a little bit, because I think that's what a lot of doctors want when they come into practice. They want the lifestyle. They still want the income from it as well. They want to practice, but they may not want to practice like a full-time doctor.
All right.
Do you know the rules that people usually give for when you bring on an associate, like how busy you have to be?
Yeah, no, it's scary at first. Because again, when you're the sole practitioner, obviously, your payroll is much less than what it was. So the margins there, even if we're not, quite as busy as I'd like to be at that point. But bringing in an associate doctor, it entailed each time for us, and we now have 3 awesome associates at the practice. But I would always kind of bring my schedule down. So I would tighten my schedule up to allow, kind of funnel a lot of our existing patients to our new associate.
How many patients did you have on the books on average when you decided to bring a doctor on board?
We started off at half-hour schedule with our schedule, and we kind of moved to 20 every 20 minutes. So a full schedule for me is usually 16 patients a day.
And were you seeing 16 patients a day booked out like a week or two when you brought this doctor on board?
About 2 weeks is what I would start to get anxious, worried about them possibly looking to go to another practice, or trying to get in somewhere quicker. And that's kind of been our goal even to today with the 2 locations. Is as soon as we were about a month of consistently a week and a half to 2 weeks, that's when we're looking to add in doctor days.
But I think that's what most people say. Once you get 2 weeks booked out, then it may be time to look for another doctor to help expand. So yeah, it's right in line.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny. We talk to a lot of doctors, or have about, it's almost like a badge of honor of we're booked out 6 months, we're booked out 8 months. And for us, it's always, we look at that as a great opportunity in our area if we see a doctor that's booked out 6, 8 months, because again, a lot of people just, they don't have the patience to wait that long to see a doctor, even if they've been seeing that provider for a long time. If something comes up, so we always want to make sure that we're very available. We are more of a small town community, so we want to make sure that we're accessible to all of our patients and that they can get in a timely manner.
What were you working on when you decided to take step back and work on the business? You mentioned that. What were you working on, right? Like, what does that look like for you? What does your day look like? You went from going seeing patients, now you have another doctor. Tell
Mhm.
us about that experience, how it felt, just some stories you have from that time and what you were focused on.
When I'm home, I want to be fully present. So we wanted to try to make sure that there was built-in time where I could be intentional about looking at ways at growing the practice. So for us, there's a lot of things that we've done. We've really made a cornerstone of our practices growing on building into the community. So it gives us opportunities to do. We take part in IC clinics where we go into the schools and we do eye exams for the kids that don't have access to insurance. We do a lot of different fairs as far as career fairs or health fairs at the schools, um, as well as going in and talking to the kids' classrooms. We've done where we go into different businesses, different primary care offices, and we have handouts for some of the new specialties that we're bringing into the office. Just working on referrals, and I'm definitely more of a. I don't do well just kind of sitting still. I'm always kind of moving and needing to do something, and um, also not really huge on details. I like more big picture. So it allows me to kind of game plan of where do we want the practice to be going? What are our goals? As well as at this point, working with my managers on how do we want to kind of, what are our next steps in the practice? So kind of just lets me get my head above water to not just survive.
Yeah. That's interesting. And let's talk a little bit about the transition from one to two. Tell me what changed, how that feel, what happened there.
My wife is actually she's a chiropractor. She hasn't been out in practice, but she's kind of always been my sounding board for here at the practice at EyeDocs. And we were again intentional about how we grew the practice. We didn't have her as the office manager because we did want to be able to do things outside the practice and not necessarily have it tied to both of us always having to be here. And along with that is she's been kind of my uh, word of reason for opportunities. I'd probably have 5 or 6 practices if it wasn't for her at this point. We did meet with a lot of different locations or a lot of different doctors where I was excited about it. I saw a great opportunity, and as we sat down, got dinner, discussed it, I really leaned on her trust of, "Yeah, this doesn't feel right, or I think this might not be the right opportunity for us." And we wanted one that still allowed us to kind of keep our good work-life balance, or I could still be, home with the kids. I could still keep my head above water on the 2 practices and not necessarily have to be working full-time between the 2. So we kind of drew a parameter radius around our eye docs practice, about 20 miles. And I had actually reached out to the doctor that we ended up purchasing the practice from. I had heard from one of my vendors that they might be getting close to retiring. At that same time, we were adding our dry eye clinic into Brookville. So we pumped the brakes as we got things going there. And then we, a year later, kind of circled back with him. But we also wanted to make sure we had everything in place for that practice. So I always hear the stats of, it's going to be a lot harder than you'd expect opening the second location. You're going to spend a lot more time. You're all those things that go along with it. You lose a lot of the staff from the new location. So we knew going in that the staff there was looking to retire with the doctor. The doctor was 75, ready to hang it up and be done. So we actually took our lab manager, our lead optician here in Brookville. We talked with her. She was excited about the new opportunity. She's phenomenal with people, a great leader. And we had her become the office manager at the new location. So she knew about 6 months ahead of time that she'd be running this location. She was able to work with my office manager in Brookville to get ready, learn all the ins and outs, all the paperwork, all the things that she does. And then we actually hired someone who was right there in the Germantown community and started them in our Brookville office about 6 months early. So we had our whole staff, our team in place. And while we did our build out for the new location, the doctor was gracious enough to close up a month before we actually took over purchasing the practice. and we did our build outs. We brought in new equipment so that really everything matched our Brookville location. We had all the same equipment. We had a team that was familiar with how our culture is here at EyeDocs in Brookville. And so when we opened up day one, we had a great team in place that I trusted. I knew they knew what we were about, and we were able to even bring teammates from one office to the other without losing a beat. Our doctors had the same EHR, they had the same equipment. So that was really important to us, is it to be seamless and not be a huge distance between the two practices.
Yeah, that's pretty smart, actually. It's an interesting strategy. Retiring doctor, using existing staff, have the transition period, similar to your first office, right?
Yeah.
How are you dealing with staffing challenges at the moment?
Starting the second location, getting Brookville up and running, it's far enough removed that we had kind of forgot about all the difficulties early on. When we started off in Brookville, we had 3 employees. So you had somebody call off sick, you lose 33% of your employees. So you're shorthanded. I can remember the days of working with my office manager. Do we need to reschedule patients? Trying to figure that out. Where now in Brookville we have 15 team members. Where if somebody's sick, it works better when we're all here, but we can easily kind of cover for each other and help out. So now that we're seeing that in Germantown, starting off at a smaller group, we were intentional with the people that we're bringing in now. They're all hired knowing that they may have to go between the 2 offices. So we have a handful of teammates they're cross-trained, that they can help out in the optical, they can help out as a tech, and they know if somebody gets called off in Brookville or in Germantown, they need to go down there and help out.
Can you touch on that a little bit? Because I think some people might be hearing this and saying, wow, 20 minutes, 20 miles away, I could never get my staff to go that far.
Yeah.
Like, what is it that you do differently culturally that people gravitate towards your office?
Yeah, and it was being really slow and very intentional on how we hire our team members. So we've gone through the hiring process, and now Indeed, you just get a huge influx of people applying. We'll get 400 or 500 people within a couple of weeks, and it's just being patient. We're being a small town. It's a unicorn to find someone who's already trained in the position you're hiring for. That's got a good culture fit that matches what we're about, what our mission is at the office. So we tend to go off of personality. We go for people who are hardworking, that work well with teams, and that have a great personality. So for us, it's being patient. We've had times where we're a month in, and me and my office manager will be joking. We're like, man, are we ever going to find somebody? Are we going to, do we need to start cutting the schedule? Do we need to start doing this or that? And it's just being patient and waiting for the right people to come in. So every time we found the right fits, people who are mission oriented with us, who want to, there to help patients, that they work well with teammates. And, we've even had times where, we've had them show up at the office in Brookville. Last minute, someone calls off. They'll go down to Germantown for the morning, come back to Brookville, and they just know how our patients always come first.
So I'm going to ask an interesting question here. Tell me about when you hired someone and there was a false positive. You thought they're a good cultural fit and they ended up not being. What happened? How'd you work through that?
Yeah, and we've had very few over the years, thinking back, of a teammate that didn't work out. It was because of performance. It was almost always, if something didn't work out, it was usually how they interacted with the team. And it's tough. I'd like to say I'm always really quick to make the needed adjustments. And sometimes we keep team members around maybe a little longer than we should, hoping, again, we're in a small town, so a lot of the teammates that we have, they're in our community. My kids might go to school with them, and it can be tough. But again, it ultimately comes down to the reason why we keep growing is because we want to keep making bigger impact. We want to be able to help more patients. And it's really cool now when we get together, team events, we do quarterly outings, we're getting ready to go axe throwing with the team. And we get both offices together just to see, it's like a family reunion. They all genuinely enjoy hanging out with each other, catching back up. And we're here to take good care of our patients, but we're here to provide a great culture and a great place for our staff to work. They're well taken care of. We genuinely care about them. And part of that is if there's someone here that's making it difficult for them to do their job, to take care of our patients, or difficult for them to, not just be excited to go to work, it's our job to fix that. So we have made those decisions. I think we're getting better and better at that, as well as just better at not running into that in the first place, making an emphasis on how we make the hire versus having to fix it later.
I like that. So let's shift gears a little bit. What are you most excited about for two things? I'm going to ask you this question about your business and about the industry. So I'll let you decide where you want to start. What are you most excited about for your business and for the industry?
I would say for the industry, especially in our field, in our specific area, we saw all over the last 5 or 10 years this big move of a lot of practices, optometry and ophthalmology, all going to private equity. We saw our biggest referral source for ophthalmology get bought up by actually an optometry private equity group. And we saw a lot of our favorite surgeons that we referred to leaving the practice, going elsewhere, or retiring early. It's been kind of cool over the last few years. A lot of these providers, they're starting to come back and open up private practices. And we're excited as we're expanding. We're seeing other providers. There's kind of this resurgence of enough is enough. We don't want someone telling us how to take care of our patients. We want to be able to do what's best for them, not what's just best for the bottom line for the corporation. So we're kind of excited to see that resurgence of entrepreneurship and ownership, and getting back to what's most important for the patients. And then for our practice, it's I'd say really jumping into our specialties. So we've kind of rebranded I mentioned before we brought in Germantown, we had just opened up our dry eye clinic. So we branded it Dry EyeDocs. So we had brought in IPL, radio frequency, as well as low level light. And so it's really taken off over the last year. We're starting to see a lot more patients and get more referrals from the outside from that. And as we brought in Germantown, we added a new associate who has a strong interest in sclerals and specialty contacts, which the rest of us at the practice would be happy if we didn't see any more of them. So we're kind of branding her as specialty lens docs, and she's been great going out into the community, talking to providers about what she does, and we're happy to send her all of our specialty fittings. So again, being small town, we don't want people to have to travel a long way. We want to be that answer for as much as we can, and be able to provide those different opportunities is great.
Love it. Well, it's interesting because you have a unique way of looking at things. People seem important to you. The patients are important, very focused on the service. Can you share with me a story, Kyle, that kind of made you who you are today? Like, I'm curious, like it could have been something when you're much younger, but something formative that you were like, yeah, you know what? This is why I do what I do. And this is why I think the way I think.
So actually, my freshman year in undergrad, I was actually a business major, a business marketing major. And it was actually hearing a speaker talking about doing mission trips, eye exams over in Haiti that got me interested in optometry. I really honestly had not been to an eye doctor very often growing up. And but I had started to kind of feel drawn to whether it was nonprofit business or something just more of a direct impact, helping people than just in the business field. I thought about nonprofit business, but I went and reached out to our family optometrist growing up. Spent a couple hours talking with him, and thankfully made the decision that summer to switch for my sophomore year into biology. So as we were going through optometry school, once I got into there, they had opportunities to go to Haiti and do these mission trips, which I think it would be. I definitely encourage any students in school for going out into the field and working to go on one of these kind of trips to just see the impact that you have on, and just to see the need worldwide. We kind of take for granted how great everything is here in the U.S. And that was a big part of being able to help out. And now that we're able to do that in our local community, doing these IC programs with our local school districts.
Yeah. Tell me more about that program. And if people are interested, how could they get more involved with something like that?
I mean, the group, it was SBOSH. So we actually partnered with a couple of the professors. And I want to say it was actually through one of the state organizations over on the East Coast. But there were 6 of us students. And actually, my second year, normally third and fourth years is when you're able to go on these SBOSH trips. But I was able to go in my second year, which that's that year you're starting to learn a lot of your clinical skills, your endoscopy, ophthalmoscopy. And when you're doing that on 1,700 eyes, I felt like it really helped me kind of hone in on a lot of my optometry skills very early on. But, just to be able to see, going from the process of checking the vision, just their acuities, looking at the health of the eyes, having the talks with them about if we saw lots of glaucoma while we're there. as well as just a lot of patients that were needing cataract surgery. There was cataract surgeons that would come in a couple weeks after we identified who was in the most need, and they would come do these surgeries for them. But even just seeing the glasses at the end, and it wasn't always a perfect prescription. Um, I know for us now in private practice, and a lot of the associates that have joined our practice that first year, you overplus a patient by a quarter, and it throws them off. Where here, the prescription, it's in the vicinity of the right prescription because we're going off of glasses that were donated from previous patients. But just seeing them light up, how much of an impact, how important that is to them. People who maybe couldn't go to work, couldn't interact in their community are now able to to fully do so.
That's awesome. I know you're still going on these trips. I know Haiti's probably not the right spot to go to right now.
We haven't yet, and that's definitely something I would like to, especially as my kids are starting to get older. That'd be something to kind of get them involved with. Um, we talked about we're very family oriented, and our kids are huge fans of EyeDocs. They have my 4-year-old son, his EyeDocs t-shirt's his favorite outfit that he wears to school, and we're intentional of when I go to work of Daddy's going to help people. I'm not going to work. There's value in what we do. We're helping people, and we want them to see that as they're growing up. It's not a place that I'm away from them. It's a place that we're able to help and make an impact.
Oh, that's really good. I like that a lot, actually, because my kids are getting up there in age too. We're thinking, okay, we need to start doing some of these things too now. They're getting older.
Absolutely.
What advice would you give to your younger self coming right out of OD school? And you had a baby on the way, you had a lot, but like, what advice would you give to your younger self, knowing what you know now?
It's become almost an inside joke in the office, ebbs and flows. For me, I'm kind of go, go, go. I always want to be growing. I always want the practice to be at its peak performance. And it was actually one of the pieces of advice that the doctor I bought the practice from here in Brookville was, sometimes God slows things down for you for a reason, and take advantage of that. It might be you need to work on some processes in the office, or you need to refine something. But knowing that when things do slow down, whether it's we're adding a new doctor, I'm pulling my schedule back because I always get anxious about when I'm not in the clinic as much. Take advantage of that time. Don't get anxious. Don't get ahead of yourself. And then when things are, moving up 1,000 miles an hour, take advantage of that. Just knowing that there'll be moments where things do slow down.
I like that. It's almost like, stop and smell the roses occasionally, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Kyle, we usually give people room for a shout out here. So like, is there anyone in particular that you're like, you know what? I like this person. I follow this person. I like this podcast. Any kind of neat resources or people you follow, or just people that have helped you along the way? Anyone you want to shout out or to say thank you to?
Yeah. So Tim Merrigan with Aquos Advisors. Like I said, we brought Aquos on, and I've been working with him since probably 2019. So we're going on 6 or 7 years, and to have somebody in your corner who knows the background of your practice that can give you good advice, and as well as sometimes it's just a sounding board when you're frustrated about something. But he's been instrumental in helping us grow to where we are. Along the way, depending on what we had going on, what our next steps were, we were looking at. I did bring on iDoc, and we've worked with Nathan Hayes and Steve Argo at times. Getting advice when we were looking at different practice acquisitions. As well as Dr. James Dickey was the doctor I bought the practice in EyeDocs from in Brookville. And he was a huge foundation for where I am today. He was a serial entrepreneur. He's probably opened 5 or 6 practices. He really enjoyed the starting the practices, and that's been really helpful in Germantown. I was much more enjoyed the kind of growing and developing the practices.
That's awesome. So if people want to reach out to you, Kyle, where can they find you?
I'm on LinkedIn at Kyle Maxam, as well as you can always reach me by email. It's probably the easiest. It's kylemaxam.od@gmail.com.
All right. And we'll put that in the show notes for people to get in touch with you, and put the links as well for your website and LinkedIn and social.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Well, Dr. Maxam, thanks again for being on the show.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. It's been fun.
My biggest takeaway, I loved I'm not going to work, I'm going to help people. I think that's the core of the message I heard throughout the entire conversation is taking care of people, whether it's your staff, your patients, your people you're buying the practice from, and they're taking care of you too.
we being practice owners, we're creating the culture in the workplace. So if we don't like it, it's our own fault where we're going to work, our office. So we want to make sure that this is a place that we enjoy going, as well as the rest of our team. And it's worked out well.
I love it. I'm gonna steal that one if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, and thank you, audience. If you learned something or laughed, please share the podcast with a friend. Make sure to hit the subscribe button so you never miss an episode. If you see the meeting link in the show notes and you book a meeting, I'll send you a free copy of my book, Optometry Redefined. Thank you again, Kyle, for being on the show. And this has been another exciting episode of Optometrists Building Empires. See you next time. That's a wrap on another episode of Optometrists Building Empires. Thanks for joining. For show notes and more, visit buildingempires.live. This show is proudly sponsored by My Business Care Team. My Business Care Team was born out of staffing challenges my wife and I faced together, managing multiple optometry locations. We refined our approach at classic vision care and now offer our expertise to others. If you're experiencing challenges with staffing and you'd like to set up a discovery call, we'd be happy to help you and connect you with the right resources. We'll see you next time.